Waters podcast, where Mainers tell their stories, unfiltered.
Good afternoon, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and you're watching the Muddy Waters podcast, and we have our special guest today with us, Richard, also known as the Unquirer. Thanks for joining us, Richard.
Hello, it's good to be on. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's always fun to have you on. We always have good conversations, sometimes arguments, because we don't always agree on everything. And lo and behold, we can actually do that.
We can. I love coming on. You're one of the only podcasts in Maine, so.
Well, we do what we can, and so hopefully we're doing more good good than otherwise. But you never know. You never know. No, I think that obviously, a number of people reached out. Like one of the things that like where can a city council or school board candidate go on a podcast, outside of this, it's to have a platform for people to be able to get some content recorded, to be able to push out, to be able to talk about who they are and what they do. That's one of the reasons I love doing this. Like, it's great to have the Heidi Sampsons, Laurel Libby's, those types of people, Mike Soboleski, Katrina Smith. Jeez. I was, people like that, they're obviously really, in the know people in Maine politics, but it's also nice to have like the other people and just have a conversation with the grassroots people like Mason or Maine Antifa, which is a parody account, just for the record. We are not pro Antifa. But anyway. It's always fun to be able to have conversations with average Mainers about what the heck's going on, in our state. And, I wanted to do something like right after the election, but like there was a lot going on and I just didn't end up doing a podcast. And so we're kind of going to do a little bit of like the white pill, black pill, like, should we be encouraged by what's happened? Are there reasons to be encouraged, or should we be black pilled? Should we encourage people to move to New Hampshire and join Eric Brakey over there? He's trying to encourage people to come join him, or somewhere down south where they're actually conservatives, and a conservative run state, or should we give up on Maine? These are questions that I think a lot of Mainers are asking, and should we join the fury of people in Maine politics who are just trying to figure out who on our side we can shoot because we didn't win? What's the process? What should we be doing?
Well, tonight I'm probably going down to St. George. Never been there before, and they're having an emergency special meeting because a boy has decided that he is now a girl and wants to play on the girls' team. So the town, I don't know if you read anything about it or saw the video.
I think so. Is this the one where some parents showed up at the school board?
Yeah. Well, so it was actually a city council meeting because the town itself hosts the basketball team. So the boy will have to be allowed to change in the locker room with the girls, and the residents are furious because you can't say, hey, you can be a girl and be on the team, but you also have to be excluded from the locker room. So now the parents are furious and they're threatening to pull their kids, their daughters, from the basketball team. And I guess multiple parents said that the kid came to school recently and said that mommy said I'm a girl now. And they said that the mother's ideologically pretty much left-wing and trying to push agenda. And their pre-K child is also transgender. So both the children are under the mother.
Whew. Yeah. What do we say when we talk about this issue, or I say anyways, like we got two different forms of mental illness here. One are the children who think that they're the wrong gender, and the other are the parents and the other people that are supporting the child who thinks they're the wrong gender. Because like, this is like, I don't know what I was watching a little clip from like a Jordan Peterson thing where somebody's like, I'm actually a biologist and there are more than two sexes biologically. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that's actually like so opposite of actual science. Like, that's why they don't talk about biological sex as much when you're talking about this conversation, because it's an objective fact that there are two sexes. And so that's why the conversation is focused around gender and ideology that they created, and then they blamed us for creating gender norms, right? Yeah. Like gender, I don't know if you remember, but when I was a kid,
they redefined it. They purposely, I mean, everyone knows, right?
Yeah, gender wasn't a term, but it was sex. When you filled out forms, you either put male or female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you can go anywhere you want. You can be non-binary. I don't know if you listened to my phone call that I just did to some gyms today.
Oh, I didn't listen to the ones that you did today. I saw the one. I listened to the one and threw it up in a couple of different places. From I think it was from yesterday, and yeah, it was the one where you called and basically asked if you could change in the girls' locker room and get naked in there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no problem."
Yeah, I just did 2 more calls. Another one. I just said that I'm a father and I have a bunch of I have a daughter and there's a bunch of girls that want to join the gym. And is there a chance that biological men will be changing naked with the girls? And they're 15, and the gym said yes. And they already have a staff member that's a transgender, and that anyone can use any locker room, and people can change naked, and they can shower together. And it's just, it's crazy that we even have to talk about it.
Well, it is crazy that we have to talk about it, but also it gets to, which, I mean, again, the social, like, so there are two, I mean, basically there are two sides of the coin when we're talking politics that really drive people to vote, right? Mm-hmm. One are like the social issues, right? And then on the other side, you have more like the economic issues.
Yeah.
It's probably more complex than that, but we'll just kind of simplify it down to being those two different directions. And I mean, you could bring up things like freedom, parental right. Anyway, but yeah. So like, when it comes to economics, conservatives have a chance to do well, but when it comes to the social issues, we tend to lose on the social issues, even somehow when we're like we have the majority opinion, if that makes sense. Like, I think one of the things that we talk about sometimes, like when we're dealing with these school boards, is that, like, if you have a school board that's like 7-5, we'll say conservative to liberal, if we don't get like a huge showing of people to show up when one of these big issues is being discussed, our conservatives will cave.
Yes, the older ones, because a lot of the people that are in positions in politics are from an era where the type of people that joined it knew it was safe. They knew they weren't going to have to do any battles. There'd be no social cost to them. And now we've entered a new era where those people are backing out, the ones that are a little bit more cowardly. And we're in the new phase where the more bolder people are stepping forward. So so what we're doing is we're having to replace both the leftist board members and the milquetoast conservatives, right? And so now we have other ones that are just going, no, we're not doing this anymore. Vote across the board. And so I guess when you think about like the white pill, black pill part of this, is it's the black pilling part is how much work we have to actually do on every one of these policies, and they'll never budge. The white pill part is that these things are ridiculous and it gets people to pay attention. So like, I don't think that this issue drives people out to vote, but it gets people to pay attention to our side, right?
Yeah.
So like you were just saying, like one side, the cultural issues get people to pay attention. They know that this is not going to be something they're going to vote on entirely. But then after you get their attention, you have to then switch it over to, here's our economic plan and how we're going to bring Maine back to normal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm concerned. I'm more, I don't know where I am. I try to be like, I sometimes say that like the way that Aragorn is described in the Lord of the Rings is one of the ways he's described is he gives hope to men, but keeps none for himself. And I feel like often that's how I feel. I'm like, I try to encourage people and be like, I actually wrote a thing, right? That got reposted actually by a portion of it by the Maine Wire, right after the election, basically saying, look, I mean, there's good stuff that's happening, low voter turnout election. The things that the things that are happening as a result of Charlie Kirk are going to have long-term fruits, not short-term fruits. So, and there is stuff happening. There's a lot of really great things. 30, I believe, new Turning Point chapters of different forms between Turning Point USA, the college version, Club America, the high school version, Turning Point Faith, the more church-based version. These things are popping up, and we've got about 30 that have started in the state. But like, this is a long-term thing. So it's good. Plus, again, low voter turnout election, blah, 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 poorly worded, all this stuff. But I also like, I wonder, with a lot of these issues, I think somehow we still get branded as being the mean guys, and that people vote more on emotion and like, do they think we're mean, rather than whether or not like
No,
we're
I think
pushing the truth.
I think the
that
reason
makes
I think the reason we don't get as much turnout is because people think we're weak, right? So like I mean, there's a lot of people are waiting to have someone to fight for and rally behind.
This is true. We have a
Yeah.
void of like leadership that people want to follow. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's one of the things that made Trump really different. But go ahead, continue.
Well, I mean, okay, so like right now we have the rise of the Democrats. So like we have really two groups, and it's going to become more clear soon. You have two moral groups. You have the Democratic Socialists, right? And that's just a blanket term for that whole group. That's like the new emergence of the left. The right, I would
The
see
AOCs and the Bernie Sanders and that
Zoran,
Mamdani. Yep, that wing of the Democrat Party. Yep.
And I think that what we're going to see is we're probably already seeing it is the rise of the Christian nationalists, and that will be
the evil Christian nationalists, right? The horrible people, the white supremacists.
Well, would you consider yourself? No, I know. Yeah.
I'm just making fun of our opponents. No, yeah. I would
those
not.
Those are the two factions.
Yeah. Interesting. Those are the two emerging factions.
Two emerging factions, yes. Because the problem is that the previous right didn't have a moral foundation, right? And so going forward, and this will become more clear as I explain it. Both sides have to have identifiable like path forward with a moral foundation, a framework for people to work under. Even if someone's not a Christian or identifies as a Christian, they will join the side of the Christian nationalists because there will only be two. So like the previous, like libertarianism doesn't give you anything, right? And I love libertarians, and I actually probably partially consider myself that. But libertarianism is we don't have an answer for anything. We just think that you should be able to do whatever you want to do, right? As long as the government can't control it. And so it doesn't address things as the transgender problem for kids, right? So or borders or lots of issues. So they can't actually define something. And what's happening is just out of necessity, the right will become the Christian nationalists. And you're already seeing prominent figures, not fringe people either, just normal political figures or debaters just labeling themselves as Christian nationalists, like Andrew Wilson, like he's a Christian debater. And he now actually labels himself as a Christian nationalist.
Interesting.
I mean, would you consider yourself a Christian nationalist?
I don't like the problem is like this term has been thrown out there largely by the left to describe people on the right. And I don't really know what it means when they say that. Like, right. I think they're trying to somehow tie it to something along the lines of Hitler, who was a nationalist. I don't know that he would have claimed Christ.
No, definitely not. No,
but they were more, I mean, Germany at the time was more of a Christian nation, but anyway, like I think that it's a term that's trying to like tie this to some sort of white supremacy and all that other kind of stuff. So, but I would say that I am a nationalist. If you want to get into like, do I think that as a country, our primary responsibility is to make sure that our citizens have the best opportunities as possible? Yeah, I mean that's nationalism, and really everybody should be a nationalist. Do we want to? That doesn't mean the idea of America first, just for the record, right? Doesn't mean America only. I mean, there's a reason that it's America first and it's not America only. I do think that we have a responsibility once we've taken care of business at home, which that's a task, to like see what we can do to help make the world a better place outside of America. I think that is incumbent upon us. I believe in the principle that was God blessed Abraham, and it said, I've blessed you and you will be a blessing. This idea that we've been blessed to be a blessing. And I'm a fan of that. But like first and foremost, we have to take care of our own country. So I'm pro tariffs, I'm pro borders, and I am a Christian, and I think our nation should be founded and continue to be on Christian, biblical, Judeo-Christian, as we like to say, values, but Christian values.
Should we limit the amount of Muslims that come into the country?
I mean, I think that the challenge in that question is, are we a nation of? Because like, I think there's two questions, right? Obviously, we're not going to limit it people who are currently here and are here legally, right? But the question is, like, when we're considering who we're going to bring here, we have to consider how they impact our culture. and whether or not that people can assimilate to our culture, because that's ultimately what we want. In order to maintain this being a Christian nation, we do have to say, how do we maintain that? How do we, and again, when I say maintain it being a Christian nation, I mean a nation founded on Christian biblical principles. We've never officially, technically been a quote unquote Christian nation, although we always have been a nation built on Christian principles. And in order to maintain that, we have to consider who it is that we're bringing here. And if those people that are coming here are not willing to assimilate to our laws, our way of thinking about laws, and our culture and our language, then I do think that it may make sense to be a little bit more restrictive in that category if you're talking about people who are unwilling, have a demonstrated inability and resistance, direct resistance to assimilation.
Okay, sorry. So yes or no?
That, I think the answer would be yes.
Okay, so because right now we have like the two most popular Western cities in the entire West, right? London and New York City are now led by socialist Muslims, right? So that's not small potatoes, right? So in the West, the two probably most iconic, important, large cities is London and New York City. They are both run now by socialist Muslims. And so what is that? How is that going to impact New York City? Not even the policies. What will happen is that they'll subvert Donald Trump and whoever's in office and help funnel in immigrants, especially Muslim immigrants, into New York City and spread them within the community. That's what they did with London. So like even if the politicians say no, we don't want that, you can't stop the flights in, right? So like if Zoran wants to, as a Muslim, he can sit there and just help. He can find creative ways to help facilitate Muslims to enter in. And then essentially we're starting to look a little bit more like UK, right? We're in that state. We thought, oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But now, just like the UK, our most important the city, New York freaking city, man, is now run by a socialist Muslim, right? That's going to send a signal to the Islamic world, which there are a lot, millions upon millions, and they're going to come to America, right? And they can work they can work underground, and it might not be the flow of foreigners that we saw through the southern border, but you will have a steady flow of Muslims, like what happened with London. So the moment,
one of the things you're saying, though, I'm not fully tracking with, like, because like politicians can stop. Like it doesn't matter if Zoran is the mayor of the city. Like in terms of whether or not they get into the country and pass through the immigration, the customs, they have to have a legal visa here.
Yeah, so that's not getting an immigration status. That could be vacation, right?
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's not as simple as like you can just funnel people in.
Oh, for sure you can. Of course you can.
They have to be approved to come through the USCIS.
Yeah, and so they get a visa, and maybe they come and visit. What it's doing is it's sending a signal, right?
But what I'm saying is, like, there is a place where the State Department, in conjunction with the legislature, can limit that.
Yeah. So let's just say for Trump's 3 years, he helps limit the amount of Muslims that are going to come in to support Zoran, right, in the Democratic Socialist movement, just like in the UK. If Trump loses his third, or if we don't win the next election, and we have a Democrat that's in power, they're going to work hand in hand with Zoran, and they're going to freaking fly them in. They're going to ensure that any of these major cities are under Democrat socialist rule. We call it the unholy alliance, right? It's the Democrat socialists with the Muslims, and you saw this exact playbook all throughout UK and Europe. And I mean, you have Sadiq. I don't know if you pay attention to London with Sadiq Khan.
Not as closely.
Yeah, same thing. I literally knew before. I knew that this was going to happen just by watching Europe. They don't do anything original. The reason that people come to me going, Richard, how did you predict this? How did you get this right? They have a playbook, right? It's not by chance that just like with UK, that are now New York City is now run by a Democrat socialist Muslim, just like Sadiq Khan runs London. And in that time period, you had different prime ministers that were like, no, we're closing the borders. We're going to slow it down. But yet magically, there was a mass flood of foreigners that went into London, right? Overpopulated it and pushed out all the local population. And if you look at the demographics for London, it's absolutely insane now.
Really?
And yeah, oh yeah.
Give me. Do you have any what
Yeah.
percentage? Yeah. I feel like every time I hear you type, it sounds like you must have a keyboard from like the 90s.
I do. No. Okay, so right now, 41% of London's population is foreign-born, which skyrocketed under Sadiq Khan. And I mean, that's a lot. That's
a very high percentage.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
And they can't vote themselves out of the problem. So they're permanently going to have. Okay, let's see.
Well, this is one of those things where like the Zoran thing is like it's hard not for that to be a black pill, right? Because one of the best, I mean, New York City was considered to be the greatest city on earth at some point, right? In so many ways, it's like it's just a central focal point of the American economy and just like Broadway and all these things, right? New York is this like, oh my gosh, New York, right? And so like our greatest city essentially has now has a socialist, basically a communist. Although like they're like, he's not a communist. It's like, okay, well, communism, socialism, they're the same plant at a different stage in growth. And so like you have this guy who's elected there, and some people are not terribly concerned about that. They seem to be like, well, a Democrat won in a Democrat area.
Yeah,
or
it's idiotic at this point.
Or the other thing that they're saying, and I'll let you respond to this as well, is basically like, well, they're going to find out.
No.
Right. But go ahead, because I agree with you. But
you and I are okay. 10 years ago, you could make that blind statement. All you have to do is look at our neighbors, right? UK and Europe, Australia, Canada. It's so stupid. And I'm so any Republican or quote unquote person on the right that even makes that statement going, oh, it's not a big deal, or oh, they'll get what's coming to them and they'll see it and then they'll see the light. No, what's going to happen is exactly what happened in London. You have a Muslim socialist that comes into power. You have a lot of people that are like, nope, F that, I'm out, right? So they flee, and then they call it white flight. And what happens is that the local population leaves. It creates a huge empty area there. And then they're going to keep funneling on their own people. If you ever read any literature on like Marxist playbook, socialist playbook, communist playbook, the number one first step for them, it's not the first step, but one of the most important things is to seize the largest cities, the city centers, right? Once they take the city centers and the control, they can actually start funneling resources from the local population in the surrounding areas. Once you actually collect as much resources and pull all that stuff and put a strain on that state or regional area, you can then start cutting off the rural areas and enact policies and laws that not favorable to them. And you can keep extracting the wealth. The next parts in the playbook are not so good. That's when the conflict arises. And the right in America used to be fooled to think that there was like this hidden redneck army that existed that would defend them. It doesn't exist. Is there a hidden left-wing movement that will actually inflict some harm upon people? Yeah, 100%. There's nothing on the right that even is comparable to them. That's the black pill.
I don't know. Like I think that the question, like I do think that there is a hidden. I know that there are people on the right that, like the question is like, at what point will they actually do something?
They can't.
Why?
They can't. Fundamentally, the system is against them. So
I understand the system is against them.
No, because they can't simultaneously walk out their doors and just meet up at spot and start training or learning or working together. So what has to happen first is the steps of an organization and a public organization saying that we're going to start to have a combatant militant force that's going to resist this or be there to resist it. You haven't seen that in a single Western country anywhere. And even in America, they can't do it. What would happen is that the local state would actually shut them down, arrest them for random charges, get them on gun charges, use red flag laws against them, have their family members, because they're going to have leftists that are in their family.
I don't know that you necessarily need these people to like organize to be prepared in the event that something happens. But I hear what you're saying.
So there's no time in history. You can't point to any time in history where an unorganized, loosely gathered rural force that has no true communication rose up against the actual state in that area without having like a leadership position and organized movement. It's just not going to happen. The right wing's thing is when they come down they better be prepared when they come down my driveway, right? No, they're not going to do anything. They will not do anything.
Well, I think that I don't know that it's going to get to the point where they need to per se.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. It's going to probably look closer to what's happening in UK and Europe, right? Right. I mean, so the left has complete control. And the citizens are really upset, so they go out and protest. And then to set an example, the state will arrest and start locking up the leaders. And the leaders can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, America is very different than Europe and UK in a lot of ways, though.
Yeah, so it takes a little bit more time. So you have the socialist West Coast, you have the socialist Great Lakes, you have the socialist Northeast, and you have the socialist DC area. And then in the center, you do have a movement. So what the socialists will do is that they're going to appeal to global authority and global help. So in the beginning, they're going to flood the country with as many foreigners as possible, put them in positions of power. And remember, granted, this is the white pill is that America is not nearly as bad as the other countries, but every step of the way, it is inching towards that. And because the moment that we lose Republican power, like House, Senate, and presidency, it's going to accelerate so fast to catch up, it'll make your head spin, 100%.
So it's interesting because I don't disagree with you that there. I mean, obviously, there's like I'm frequently telling people that like on so many levels, I think people do not realize how dark it is right now. You know, I'm still in a place where I believe that there's hope, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, why would I be doing this? Like, hey, here's a target, come and get me, right? You know, but so I do believe that there's hope. I believe that there's hope even here for the state of Maine, but I do think it requires people to realize the moment in which we live and realize how dangerous the other side is. And there have been some things that have made that abundantly clear. But what's interesting, I think one of the reasons that I'm more black-pilled more than just what you're saying, because I think obviously there are concerns with what you're talking about. But one of the bigger concerns is that we're at this moment where we seem to be more interested in attacking one another over the fact that we lost and blaming and yelling at people, not yelling per se, but like pointing the finger and like really wanting to beat up on people. And talk about who didn't do what, and the Maine GOP is a joke. They're a trash heap. They're not doing anything, or you know, the people who put on the yes on one thing, they doomed us by the way in which they wrote it. Everybody knows who they are, Laurel and Alex. You know, and like, you know, what's interesting is like there is some, I guess, venom being spit, so to speak, at Shanna Bellows in the way in which she worded both of those questions in all reality. But at the same time, like we're at this place where, and I think this is happening nationally as well. If you look at what's going on nationally, there's like this splintering that seems to be happening in the MAGA movement where you've got, I mean, Tucker Carlson is being attacked as being an anti-Semite because he had interviews with people who have takes where you could try to come to a conclusion. I'm not disputing that they've said things that I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't say that, but like they're not like full on, none of these people that they're claiming are in any way full on anti-Semitic or saying that they're anti-Semitic. And yet they're going after Tucker. You have, and then you have a lot of, other elements where I think we're really splintering, in our conservative movement, which is concerning.
I'd say it's transforming. I think they're transforming to the next stage. So like you have a sect, a massive amount of the people on the right that understand what they're facing, right? And so they're moving in so if you have two sides, you have the Democratic Socialists. The absolute binary opposite of that would be the Christian Nationalists, and that's what's forming, right? And because this is what always happens. You'll have two diametrically opposed sides, and people will start taking positions that they don't even necessarily agree with, but they know they have to just fall in line. And so there is going to be this natural resistance to the growing America First Christian nationalist movement, which is going to be like, we have to be a little bit harsher. We have to start saying no. We have to actually not be wusses about everything. And so you're going to have that old guard that's going, no, that's not how we do it. But anyone that's actually anyone that knows where we're really at, the old guard's worthless. There's nothing there. They are great during the 1990s. Peacetime, everything's easy. You want to appease the middle. You're trying to get lots of money. But what we're doing is we're moving into a new phase. So this is just a natural cycle of it to actually be, and there should be resistance to it, right? Like, I'm actually glad people are resisting Tucker Carlson, not because I disagree with Tucker Carlson. It means that there's a mechanism so that we can still check our people, right? This is social filtering of ideas. So there has to be people are like, whoa, I don't like this. I don't like that. That's actually a good thing. We actually should be celebrating that there's a little bit of pushback against these things.
It doesn't seem like a little bit of pushback. It's like full on calling him an anti-Semite. I mean, a number of prominent people. I mean, Ted Cruz, who's made himself a fool on Tucker's show. But there are a number of other, conservative like congressmen and other, podcasters and different things like that are in prominence, and I don't have them off the top of my head. But there are a number of more prominent people on the right that are saying these crazy things. So yeah.
Oh, I mean, do you think that it's? No, probably
it seems that way. Yeah.
Okay, if we're
but more importantly, part of what I'm talking about too is like what's happening here in the state of Maine, right? And how we're like, it seems like, and I'm experiencing this to some degree, even at like a local level, where there's just a lot of like vitriol and anger and frustration, which I totally understand. I do feel like it's a little bit overboard. Given what happened, given the nature of how the question was written, like we were not, and that question failing, it doesn't really have a significant impact on our life, right? Because it's just the law didn't change. The other one, the red flag law, there are definitely some concerning potential implications there. But the other question, like the fact that it failed doesn't actually change anything, right? Outside of like momentum and making us feel like we're in a good spot. But there's still, like I said, there still is just so much like vitriol and anger about the fact that we lost another thing. And there's a lot of frustration there. And instead of recognizing, like I used the phrase, I think the last podcast I did, but it's from the Hunger Games, remember who the real enemy is, right? It's in that it's the capital. For us, it's the Democrat Socialists. It's the radicals on the other side. It's the people who are the real reason. Like, we can do what we want and say like, hey, maybe if they'd worded the question differently, blah 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 blah. But part of me, first of all, is like, well, if they'd worded the question differently, and they just focused on photo ID for like in person, right? I look at it and I say, what does that actually change?
It doesn't change anything.
Right. It doesn't change anything. Like mail-in ballots, if there are any concerns in our elections here in the state of Maine now and going forward, they're not with people who are voting in person. They're with mail-in ballots. So if there's no checks added in related to mail-in ballots, then there's really, in my opinion, no point in having a voter ID law. So
yeah.
So really the problem is not the people who brought this. The problem is Shenna Bellows and the way in which she worded the question primarily. And yet, even though that's true, and we all know that's true, this is just an example of an area where we're spending a lot of time like shooting at each other rather than recognizing that's right. Like, yes, could you make an argument that we made some mistakes in the way in which this was brought forward, the year in which it happened? I think in like a 2026, this bill would have had a lot higher chance of being successful because you get higher voter turnout, which would favor us more. Maybe, right?
But, I think it's the amount that they lost by is what's really hard for people to swallow.
Well, and I get that, but like, again, my point is like, we had a team of people who tried to do something and we were unsuccessful. We were primarily unsuccessful because the other side literally lied to people and told them they were not going to be able to have absentee ballots. Bill was the question was written that way. That's the primary reason we lost, right? and yet we have some vitriol for Shenabellos for sure, but it seems like it's much more we'd rather infight than like unify against the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
that
hard.
Makes sense?
Yes, but I think that these policies and laws are pretty irrelevant because they're very relevant when you have two sides that are working together and the other side will adhere to them and both sides agree, okay, I lost this, I lost that. We've moved into a new phase where the actual ideology, having the average people pick the sides of the ideological side that they're on is more important. So it's, let's just say it doesn't, none of these things even matter. They're so small in the drop of the bucket with what the problem is. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do these things because they actually get people to talk about them and wake people up. But I think that the right should be less demoralized about this and more demoralized about the actual state of the Northeast right now. Right now, they need to. We're unlikely to win the governor race. We're just not likely to win it. And to me, I think Susan Collins is, unless if something changes, is going to lose her seat. And I think the only one that we can do, and I think it's going to be a fight. I think that people are underestimating CD2. That the best hope that we have is to cling on to CD2 and use the election cycle to wake up as many Mainers as possible. Because winning political power isn't the only way to win power, right? There's two realms. Like, just because we pass a law or policy in the state of Maine isn't going to change the underlying problem. And the other side doesn't care. They're not going to adhere to it. It's hard to put into words. I wouldn't be as black-pilled about that stuff because the purpose is, the thing is that if we didn't have voter ID go on the referendum, we never would have had the 250 blank ballots. Steve at the Maine Wire blew up. A lot of people are seeing this stuff as issues. And then now we have the new referendum. These referendums and stuff is actually a way to make people realize that it's actually happening and forcing the conversations. And then we have all the people running for governor, and they're all saying things that we've been begging them to speak about for a long time. So those are on a lighter thing. And then on a local level, we don't seem to have that difficult of a time flipping these seats, which is kind of funny, right? Like, you just point out someone, say they're a leftist, this person's not a leftist, and as long as the place is normal and it's not solid blue, they're flipping the seats without that much effort. So I think the goal is to just keep fighting, and maybe we tighten up our strategies a little bit more and try to work together more. Here's the issue: is that people assumed that there was a really strong chance that they could win this, right?
Yeah, I think that was the assumption.
Yeah,
right? I think based on the fact that it's a 70, I think about a 70-30 issue here in the state of Maine, right? Voter ID, that they thought that this should be in the bag, right? And
they could have cheated, right? Like, we don't know behind the scenes, like, right? Okay, so even the polls. I've been doing this for a long time, and you have too. The polls never favor the Republicans. What happens is that every time there's a poll done,
tend not to, yeah,
and then it comes out and they go, oh, they actually weren't that bad. What's really strange about this one is that the exit polls and the actual polls done prior to it all showed that they were neck and neck, and then after you have the election, it's a landslide for them. That is confusing because that doesn't usually happen that way.
Well, so one thing that I would say about like the polls is, like, I don't know that I've ever seen an accurate polling of the state of Maine, right? Like, I think that the polling that's been done in the state of Maine, in my experience, right, has historically just not been anywhere near accurate. Like, so going back to, like, Susan Collins when she was running against Sarah Gideon, I think they had.
But it favored Gideon. Like, it favored Gideon, though.
It definitely favored Gideon.
No, but what I'm saying, you can't just say it's inaccurate. You need to give the full picture. It's always favored Democrats.
Right, but my point is, like, so incredibly off as to be not ever trustworthy. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's not just that it favored Gideon. Yeah. It's that I think it might have even put her as, like, dead heat with Collins, and then Collins won by like 8.6%, which is well outside, the whatever you want to call it, standard deviation or margin of error, I think is the term that we usually use. And so, like, yeah, I think in general, yes, polls are way off. But they tend to skew to the left. Nationally, in the presidential election last year, the polls were actually, like, the ones that I was following anyway, there were some polling organizations that were actually like how things ended up playing out were right in line with some of the polling. Obviously, there are some that's intentionally skewed, I think, more to the left. But there were a lot that were quite accurate, because I remember like not being surprised by the results based on the polling that I had been watching, and things slowly shifting to the right. But generally speaking, yes, the polling favors and is actually, it appears to be more left leaning than reality once people actually show up and vote. And so that was pretty surprising for sure. But again, my biggest thing is I've not seen good polling for Maine either. So that's, I feel like it's worth noting.
And our role, like, I think the most crucial role for us in Maine, we're not going to turn Maine red. It's just not going to happen, right? Not unless you could turn Maine red. We're not going to turn Maine red with any leadership that we have here.
We're not going to turn Maine red with, I would say that, no offense to the people who are in leadership if they choose to get offended, whatever, but we've got a track record, right? And the people who have been leading the party have not been doing a good job in terms of helping us grow a majority here in Maine. We got the closest we've ever gotten since 2012, I think is what it was, to taking back the House, and that it might have been more recent than that, but I don't know. But either way, we've done the best we've done in somewhere around 10 years, and we got 61 votes away from winning the House last year. And that's like the best we've done basically since the early LePage years. So here we are. The party is not doing what we need it to do, and leadership is not leading us the way that they need to. And that's the thing, is like, people can be upset with this if they want, if they're in leadership, but the reality is like, that's what people follow. That's what invigorates people, and that's what gets people out to vote. And right now, one of the biggest problems we have on the right is the people on the right don't trust the people who are leading us. And the people even in the middle are not going to come over to our side if they don't see strong leadership. To your point.
Yeah. Ultimately, the political stuff, you have to be careful, because if you're in the activist aspect of it, or the grassroots stuff, the political stuff will bog you down, waste all of your time for nothing.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so like it's sometimes I just have to shake myself up and be like, why am I? It's important, but it's not. That's not my role. I think our role right now is just awaken as many Mainers as you can. You can't get to the next phase without having a grassroots movement that awakens itself, winning local stuff, getting issues talked about, bypassing the media filter that prevents people from even knowing what's happening. Like, it's where the problem is that, yes, we have to keep fighting for political power, but I think that we're not quite there yet. Here's an issue. Like, we don't have the governors, the people running for governor are talking about like, oh, immigrant this, immigrant that, or they're taking their stances, but it's so shallow that it almost comes off like they don't even know a single thing that Janet Mills has done. I mean, maybe they've said it, but I've never heard any of them say, yeah, we're going to shut down the Office of New Mainers, which is this is one of, like, who's ever even mentioned that? The Office of New Mainers was as an executive order by Janet Mills to create a pipeline into Maine to bring foreigners, which drove up the cost of housing and forced us to compete with foreigners. Like, why has there not been one governor? Because real quick, Trump would sit there and he would point out issues, and then he'd say, we're going to stop doing this issue. What we're having Republicans and people on the right come out and say, these are issues, but they're not saying any solutions like, yeah, we're going to shut down the Office of New Mainers. Like, people want to hear that, right? That's just one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge. So there's a couple of things. I think that one of the concerns that's been levied against the current slate of gubernatorial candidates is that they all talk about wanting to cut taxes, but there's not a lot in the way of like how they're going to do it. Like, what exactly are you going to cut? Right. I'm not levying this. This is what I've been hearing from other people. So, Don't shoot the messenger. But I think that that's largely true, right? There's a lot of like, we're going to get in there, we're going to figure out what's going on, and then we're going to decide what needs to be cut. There's some stuff that people talk about and they say a little bit, but there's not a lot. And you're right, to your point. That's one thing that like isn't easy. Like, we're going to end the office of
or what about this? What about when I get into office, I'm going to end the sex based discrimination that Janet Mills did through executive order. And people go, wait, what's that? And they're going to go, she used executive order to incentivize construction businesses to actually hire women over men. And then also gave them special grants to actually go through the training that prioritize females over men. We don't want to have sex-based discrimination. It's illegal. Why aren't they actually calling any of this out?
Here's the question, right? So it's become my opinion, right, that we don't win on social issues. Right, like that we win on economics.
Correct,
right?
Correct.
And
no, both. No.
Well, nationally, both here in the state of Maine. We
don't win on anything. Are you kidding?
Well, I understand that, but
no.
But like this is a question. Okay. You can let me finish, and then I'm excited for you to respond. But like I've kind of been operating under this assumption that like I don't know that we do well when it comes to social issues. Partly because even when it comes to local races, we have when it comes to local races, when people running for school boards on issues that the majority of people are concerned about, and they're still losing. Now maybe they're losing in blue districts. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? We've got a big state, so in some of these other areas, especially with the work that Alan Sarvinas with parental rights and education, as well as like Heidi Sampson, some of the candidates they're supporting, they're finding ways to victory for sure. But like we have some other ones that are on the same side in like kind of contested areas like Wyndham, for instance, where we lost everything. School board, city council. That's a purple district.
But they didn't lose by much, and Adam actually did really well for his run on the school board compared to what
he was close. Yeah. And I mean that school board, they have a slight majority. The Democrats have essentially nonpartisan, right? Okay, but they have a slight majority. But like in general, it seems to me where I'm looking at it is that we don't win in Maine on the social issues. But maybe you're just saying it's because we're not actually attacking them head on. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. So Denmark just started doing this, right? The party that's winning right now said, we're going to take the social issues and the economic issues, and we're going to do them simultaneously. And you can look this up after. They said, right now, housing has gone through the roof in Denmark, and people are been furious. Kids can't get into homes. Rent's going through the roof. The right-wing party came in and said, we've brought in too many immigrants. We have too many illegal foreigners, and they're causing housing to spike. What we're going to do is we're going to deport the bad ones, and we're going to actually bring the cost of housing down, and we're going to simultaneously build. And they won by, and you can look this up. This is very recent. They won by massive, massive margins. People were blown away by how quickly, because they took a social issue that everyone couldn't speak about the immigration, the asylum seekers and everything. And they said, the right wing said, we're going to shut down the ghettos. We're going to close them down. We're going to start deporting people en masse. And we're going to bring the cost down because you guys are all competing with these foreigners. This is a failed policy, and it only hurts you. And Denmark is one of the first European countries to start doing that. And this just happened. I've seen with Japan actually also. And it's actually been wildly popular. So you said before about the social issues and economic, you have to tie them together. The social issues get people, because if you go in there and go, I'm going to cut taxes, but I don't really have a plan. And then in your head, the people are going to do this. They're going to go, okay, you're going to cut my taxes. But then
they do have there are ways to do that. I just think people aren't communicating about them. So I think they need to communicate about them. You have two types of people. You have people that care about the cultural issues and people that don't care about the cultural issues. You need to tie them together. And that's what Trump did, right? So Trump's platform was talking about the cultural issues. But he did. I agree that he did, but he didn't win in Maine. Okay.
No,
right?
He
got smoked in Maine, right? 6.5 points. So I do agree that he ran on that, but he wasn't running in Maine. And that's where I think like Maine, when it comes to the social issues, I think Maine is in some ways farther left than we think it is.
It is. That's
and
why
I think when it comes to economic issues, that's why I'm saying that, like, my perspective seems to be that, like, the winning message when it comes to the governor's race, if we're talking that, right? When it comes to individual races for House and Senate, different story, right? But when it comes to the governor's race, it seems to me that the 3 things you win on, or the 4 things you win on, are economy,
Nope.
crime.
No, I don't think you're right.
Okay.
I think that those things combined into it. So all across the West, we've had issues where it went too blue. What the thing is that what they're doing is that you're seeing across the board that the most popular stances are the people. Yes, they're the economic parts put in there, but the culture issues are tied together. They go more extreme because when things become too polarized, you can't get anything from the middle or the left. It will not. It doesn't even matter if you come to the middle and say, hey, you will allow you to do this, they're never going to vote for you. So your only pool of people is the 40% that will only be awakened by someone that because these people truly all believe with what we believe in. The reason they don't vote is because they think it's pointless, that the person's weak, they're pathetic, they won't go forward. If you look at every model, whether it's the Italian prime minister, who's far right, Japanese prime minister, who's far right, you look at the Denmark party that actually went in, and all of these, they instead of going more middle ground or economic ground, they went more right-wing values of smaller government, deporting the foreigners, lowering the cost of housing through that. People want a full package. They want to see someone that's going to diametrically oppose the enemy, not slightly. Because the problem is that anyone that's paying attention to this, if someone says, I'm going to lower taxes, you're like, well, fuck Maine. Like, I don't care if my taxes go down 3% if you're going to keep bringing in foreigners and having boys and girls sports, right? So I need both.
I don't know, because most of my conversations end up being with people who are motivated and very motivated about politics, and I would say that they would agree with you, but like the average, what we have to do to win is we have to convince the average middle of the road voter, right? They're the ones that ultimately make the difference.
Yep.
And what do they think? And that's a question that I think we need to do a better job understanding, because I was having this conversation with somebody and I was saying, I don't know, like, that it makes sense to, like, because they were talking about a strategy of talking about both, here in Maine policy, whether it's like an organization trying to help, or whether it's like the candidates themselves running for governor, is to talk about, collaborating with ICE to get illegals out of the out of the state. And like, I definitely think that there's an element where people in the middle of the road want that. I just think how you communicate that matters, because I don't think they necessarily.
No, I wouldn't bring up
illegals. That's kind of my point. Is like, my point was saying crime, like, is what you should be.
Well, what are you going to do? But you can't just say the word crime. What are you going to do?
Public safety. I mean, we're working on actually arresting people who are committing crimes, because right now they're not prosecuting people, they're not keeping people in, they keep letting people out who go out and do repeat offenders. Like, these people that end up doing these crazy things, it's because they were not handled appropriately. And so you tighten that up. You go after the drug cartels, you go after the people who are pushing fentanyl, right? You actually have law enforcement do their job. I think law enforcement right now has knowledge and information to be able to handle some of that stuff. The problem is they don't have the support of the administration here in the state of Maine. So the answer, part of how you address crime, and making things safer, is by tightening that stuff up. And so you can address that and have that conversation without getting into, like, how we're going to,
shut down the Office of New Americans.
Well, obviously there's that, but like, I mean, but that's separate. I feel like not directly connected to law and order, but.
Well, I mean, I guess here's the thing. I'm just looking at all the models that have worked all across the world, the West and in America, and instead of trying to, because I don't see any like fiscal conservative stances winning anywhere at all. Like, coming out as the old school Republican that comes out and says, The only thing that
Well, I mean, look. But here's the thing: is like when you look at it right now, what I hear people across the board complaining about and frustrated about, regardless of party, is the cost of energy and the cost of cost of the increase of their taxes, and how that's impacting their daily lives. So that does motivate people. So I think underplaying like the lack of good jobs that are available. Like I think these types of things, historically, economics has played a much higher role in the way that people vote than the social issues.
But
for us,
you're not wrong. Yes,
that's the point. Like on the left, they've won on social issues.
Yeah, like what if
whether it's abortion or other issues in the past, like gay marriage and stuff like that, when that was a big issue, right? Like the conservative movement lost on all those issues.
You know what? A governor should come out because there's major issues that Maine has, like the replacement rate, right, which is the lowest in the nation. Imagine if one of the governor candidates said, "What we're going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start pushing for tax incentives for Maine families, people that have children, or just different things." I don't know. The thing is I feel, and I could be wrong, but like all the candidates just feel surface level. There's nothing that's actually there with the meat and potatoes that show that they can actually fight against the left in our state. And I guess that's the black pill moment.
Say that again.
So like the candidates, they don't feel like they know much about what's happened in Maine when it comes to like major certain issues, right? Like maybe it's done on purpose, so they just sound generic. But none of them really truly stand out at all. Like I haven't seen anyone actually hit any issues. Like I don't know. Like one of the major issues in Maine is the fact that our replacement rate in Maine is so bad. There's no incentive for young families. Like why can't someone say we want to have a booming young economy here? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to incentivize and give tax breaks to couples that have children, right? And then and this is the issue. This is what I'm talking about, is that you have the economic part, like you're talking about, and lowering taxes, but you tie it in with a cultural issue that people know about. So like because you want to bring, the reason the culture issues matter is because it makes people pay attention. The ears perk up, right? When you start just talking economics, they just blank off. So the key is to say, we want to lower taxes, and we're simultaneously going to tackle a cultural issue that we have, which is the replacement value. Kids are moving out of the state.
So that's a social issue, the social values issue that I think we can get bipartisan support.
Yeah. But why is it that we're talking about this and there's not a single governor candidate that's even talked about any of this stuff? They are so torturously boring. They offer they don't attack actual policies that Janet's done. They don't actually talk about dismantling them. They don't hit the right things, and they don't present any.
Well, first of all, I mean,
they don't present a vision to the future.
The reality is, like, we're way early in this process.
Yeah. No.
I mean, gubernatorial candidates this year declared way earlier than they historically have. We still have candidates who have not yet declared but are expected to declare. And so I think that there's an element of maybe they're not talking about that. So, I mean, I don't know why they haven't talked about it yet, right? Things like replacement rate and things like that. But I also think that part of it is like current people within the movement are steering the conversation, more, because a lot of what's happening with the gubernatorial candidates, for instance, is they're responding to questions.
Yeah.
Right. They're not, I mean, I have had most of them on my podcast and given them the opportunity to tell me what they think. And like a lot of it hasn't gotten into those places that you're talking about, right? But
they don't feel like leaders, I guess, right?
I don't know that I would agree with that. I mean, somebody who is we'll just talk about like a number of people who are in positions of leadership. I think they have leadership experience, and some of them have led companies, some of them started companies, and I think that there's a lot of leadership. I would say that I do see leaders. Leadership, but I don't know what maybe you have a different definition of what you're looking for.
I think I do
in this situation.
I think that right now the new type of leader has to be someone that knows how to look at an opponent and an enemy and know how to strategically defeat them. They're part of the merchant class. So what happens is that we have people that you have the administrative class, you have the merchant class. Where people are looking for are not the merchant class. They don't care that someone built something. They really don't. They're looking for someone that is strategically minded. That like when someone looks at Graham Plattner, they look at him not as a merchant class. They don't look at him as administrative class. They look at him as a part of the fighter class, right? And this is just biologically ingrained into us. We're in a time of lukewarm civil strife. People aren't looking for an administrative class. They're not looking for the merchant class. Someone that comes forward and says, yeah, you know what? I've been running a $10 billion company. It's not resonating with anyone at all. And what the people are looking for is someone that looks at the enemy and says, I'm smart enough, witty enough, and bold enough to go after them and actually start dismantling their stuff. That's what people are looking for. And sadly, and I hate to give any credit to them, but that's what you see with Shenna Bellows, Graham Plattner, not Troy Jackson. You see it with Janet Mills. These people are trained fighters when it comes to this type of stuff, right? Janet Mills would be part of the administrative class. Mm-hmm. Graham Plattner would be the fighter class, and Shenna Bellows would actually be a combination of administrative and fighter class. And what they're doing is they're learning to actually outmaneuver the opponents in a lot of different ways that we're not willing to actually play. like with her changing the wording, they don't have any problem doing that, or putting up signs that say "Stop Donald Trump" at polling stations, which maybe it's illegal, maybe it's not illegal. I don't know, but it's very, very, very unconventional, and it's actually very disrespectful.
It's technically not illegal, is what they came up with the conclusion. They changed the law so that if somebody's not, they changed the law about a year ago, I guess last year, that says if somebody's not on the ballot, like if they're not in the election, that you can have stuff related to them. Now, what's interesting is they had that stuff up, but they were denying people wearing MAGA hats, which that's actually the real violation, is my understanding, is that's where the violation lies, is in the fact that they shouldn't have stopped people from wearing MAGA stuff from coming in and voting and things like that. It seems like it's a violation, but it's interesting. But
that's what I mean. Like our side's looking for the fighter side, because if we were in peacetime and we had two sides that fundamentally were working together, the person who is the best builder, the best merchant class, is going to win, right? Or administrative, one of the two. Because both sides are going to look at them and go, how do I get the most amount of money? How do I benefit from this? We're not in that era. You have to map yourself where you're at. We're in the era where we obviously want someone that can build and make our lives better and slash taxes, but we need someone that can look at the enemy and say, I am willing to tackle them directly and outsmart them and fight these fights. And some of the candidates could arise like that, but I don't see anything in any of them for doing that at all.
It's interesting. Yeah, what would you expect them to do? Like, what would they be doing if they were doing that?
Yeah, so this would be just one candidate idea, and this is just me thinking of something off the cuff. But like, if you had a candidate that came out and said, right now, the first thing I'm going to start doing is we're going to start looking at shutting down the office of new Mainers. We have enough we have Mainers here right now, and we want to support Maine families. We're Maine first, and we're going to start giving tax breaks to families to incentivize young adults to actually start having families and kids and fill the workforce. We're going to try our hardest to actually shut down and work with, you could just say federal agents. You don't even have to say federal agents. You could just say that you want to actually start removing the foreigners, or stopping the flow of funds going to foreigners over Maine people. Force that conversation. Then you can go, you want to get men? There's a lot of men that don't like this. Sex-based discrimination. Say we're done with that. We've decided about this a long time ago. Janet Mills unconstitutionally created a program through his executive order that literally takes taxpayer money and pays companies or incentivizes companies to hire women over men. Who the hell does that? Like that is horrible stuff, and we don't want to have that. We want to look at the individual. So if you start listing off these things and say, I'm going to go after this, I'm going to go after that, you could say, here's another one. You could say, listen, we might not have voter ID, but mark my words, we're going to have a camera at every single ballot drop-off box. I can't ensure that we can get voter ID yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that I will ensure that there's a camera at every one of those, and we will go through and watch those cameras and see if we see repeat people dropping off ballots. And we're going to, and even if those things don't help. It would scare the enemy from doing it. If everyone in Maine knew that you were running on putting cameras at every one of the ballot drop-off boxes, people that were actually doing stuff illegally might go, whoa, these guys are actually a little serious. We have to be careful with that. They're watching, especially before the election goes. And that's just some quick random things. Someone else might say, we're going to start like speeding up building so that we can lower the cost of housing. I don't know. You add some economic stuff. Then you have the referendum. You could say, listen, there's boys and girls sports, and that was done through the Human Rights Act the Democrats pushed through. We want to actually change that so we can go back to sex-based, and so that we no longer have little boys changing in the locker rooms with girls. Like, that has to end. And really, really lay out these plans and don't go further. What's happening is that you're seeing diarrhea shot from all the candidates where they're just doing a spread of everything. And you can't actually figure out what these candidates are standing for. What did Grant Plattner do? If you go on his website, he picked 5 major issues. He got it ironed out, and he just keeps repeating those same issues over and over again. You need a candidate that's going to go forward and say this, and make it very simple, point out the cultural things, and then also talk about how it'll lower taxes and help the Maine families. And probably something to do with another sore spot would be property taxes, right? Yeah. But that's all they have to do. That would be. But you don't see any of it. You just see people making little posts going, "No more needles. They gotta stop putting the drugs." It's weird. It's at first it was funny, and it was cute, and it was getting attraction. But
Corn Pop has joined us, by the way.
Okay.
Welcome, Corn Pop.
Is he popping in?
No, I mean not that he's joined us. No, he's in the chat.
Have him come in.
All right, continue.
Wait, are you gonna have him come join?
Maybe we'll see.
Okay. We good. But so anyways, the candidate that I'd want would be someone that would actually really fight back and start fighting back. I don't know that. Yeah,
I mean, you're bringing up a bunch of interesting topics that people really aren't. I would agree that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about, like, you talk about replacement rate and stuff like that. I'm not seeing candidates talk about that so far. They are talking about, like, I mean, I know that the one when you're talking about like the social side issues, like one candidate who has been talking a lot about that and very loudly, I would say, is Bobby Charles. I think Wessels will talk about those things. And when it comes to boys and girls sports, every single candidate has like come out on our side of that. So who knows, long term, what other issues people are going to bring up. But I think that there is, I don't know. We don't win a lot in Maine, and I think some of these candidates are trying to be tactical and trying to figure out where's the safe space to like bring into some of these things. But what's interesting is, like, I think what you're saying is we just want somebody who's willing to come in and not worry about that.
Yeah. But, well, what do they have to lose? Like, if you look across the people that are bold and willing to tackle the things they're winning, like, no one thought that Trump was going. No one thought that Trump was going to win 2016. People thought it was a lost cause. The harder he fought and the more I don't know. I just don't. We'll see. Like you said, it's early. It's kind of not early, though. I mean, it's before we know it, it'll be December, and then we're 9-10 months away from the actual election. It's going to move fast.
I mean, it's in terms of, like, historically, when it comes to gubernatorial races, it's pretty early. It's still pretty early, especially since not all the candidates have even joined the race yet. Like, that's what I would say. But yeah, I do think it's going to move quickly. But I also think that, like, most people don't care yet. Like, most Mainers are not paying attention to what's going on in the political scene yet, and so I think that's.
I guess it's a good time right now for them to iron out.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to figure out, what direction they're going to go, and like what's the message. So part of the challenge, at least this has been the concern is like among the Republicans. And there are a couple of reasons where I think even if you thought that generally speaking, a more milquetoast Republican candidate is going to be the most likely one to win a general election, you know, in a situation where you have a former Republican who's running as like some sort of a moderate independent, you know, in favor of boys and girls sports and some other things that just don't really make sense for a Republican, which is like obviously why he's a former Republican. But either way, you've got him, and there's actually like 3 or 4 other declared independent candidates. One from Portland and another somewhere that like actually may get on the ballot. And so with a lot of independents, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But when you have a former Republican running, actually, I think one of the other people who's running as an independent is a former Republican as well. Not a name that's well known like Rick Bennett's, but somebody else. So the other factor that I think is going to come into play there is, like in that environment where you have another person who's like who has been a Republican. I mean, Rick Bennett again is the former chair of the Republican Party here in the state of Maine. And so like not just any Republican, but it's a well-known Republican that's running as an independent and going across as more of a moderate. You would think that you'd need to make sure that you have some distance between them and you. So we need a more, from that perspective, like for us to have a chance, we would need a more stronger, more right-leaning Republican in order to have a chance to win. That in fact, being this party where we try to capitulate, we try to look a little bit less right-wing, might not actually help us win elections.
No, I don't think it helps at all. I think it's because it's just the way that the Democrat Party and voters work, right? They work as a monolith. You're not going to pull from there. And you're not going to pull. I've never met someone that's like a Republican voter that goes, I really wish we had more moderate people. Like I've just never met that person.
Well, the reason that like, I mean, Susan Collins, right, is a moderate Republican
from an era where that actually was, but
it was more appreciated.
Actually, that era was actually, you saw it across the board all throughout the United States. Peacetime, where you have both sides actually working together, that's actually what wins. The extremes actually lose during those times, right? Yeah. So like anyone that's too extreme, people shy away from it. So the strategy is not to go in the middle anymore. It's actually, that's why I think Susan Collins will lose. I don't think she stands a chance.
I think the idea that she wouldn't stand a chance is absurd to me. I think she's going to win. I think it might be tight, and I think it will really depend on who she's facing. I'd be more concerned in a general election, I think, with Graham Plattner, because there's that youth element where some people might vote for him simply because he's young.
I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Janet Mills, the problem is that Democrats will line up to vote for Janet Mills,
and Republicans who might not otherwise vote for Collins will make sure to show up and vote against Mills.
But the Democrats outnumber us, so it's just a numbers game at that point.
But there's a lot of independents at all. There's a lot of people in our state that don't like Mills. Not the Democrats, obviously, but a lot of your low propensity people. Like that, her being on the ballot will be motivation to get them out. We need people to get out. That gives us the best chance of winning all the way up ticket, up and down, up and down the ticket. And so like, I think Mills being on the ballot, in my opinion, helps us overall because it gets a lot of people out to vote who might otherwise not get out to vote. Right. The Democrats are going to vote for the Democrat candidate no matter what. Yeah. And they're going to show up to vote. Right. So like whether it's Mills or Plattner or whatever, the Democrats are going to show up and they're going to vote for a Democrat. Right. What we need is who's going to get people out to vote Republicans, and Mills will get people out to vote for Republicans.
I don't know about that.
I mean, she'll get the Republicans out to vote is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But I mean,
to vote against her. So that I think she drives up the number of people who show up to vote, which is good for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's tough. What's up?
Corn Pop, what's going on?
Hold up, can you hear me?
You're a little delayed, but yes.
Yeah, there was a delay.
Seems like a significant
Can you hear me?
delay. We can hear you. I don't know if you can hear us.
I can hear you guys,
Oh,
but I can't see anything.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. Your video, I know, is delayed. At the
All right,
very least.
I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay. But yeah, so I think that Mills, I believe Mills will help get more Republicans out to vote, more conservative leaning independents. But
You really you think that Janet Mills running is actually a benefit to the Republicans?
Because like I said, so again, think about this line of reasoning, right? Democrats are going to show up already, and they're going to vote Democrat, right? Right, one way or another, whether it's for the governor's race, or the U.S. Senate race or the House race, right? They've got a lot of reasons to show up. So I think Democrats are already going to be highly motivated to show up. I think on the flip side, Republicans, this is our problem. We're low propensity. We don't show up. So I think Mills being on the ticket, I don't think she's going to encourage more Democrats and Republicans to show and independents to show up and vote for Democrats, maybe a few on the independent side. But I think that she is somebody. I mean, you saw the first rally that we did around boys and girls sports was we called it March Against Mills, and people aggressively got out to vote against her. When I post stuff in social media that has Janet Mills on it, the amount of attention that those get over anything else that I post is astronomical. The hate and the vitriol that conservatives and even some independents have for Janet Mills, I absolutely 100% think will encourage conservatives to get out to vote that might not otherwise. And I think that is good for us because I think the Democrats are already going to show up. They're already going to vote against us. Are you, can you hear us? Corn Pop. Oh, there he goes. We tried.
What happened? Did you shut it off?
No, he left. I don't know. maybe he'll come back again. But either way, I think it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are there, but that's at least how I'm thinking about this.
I guess the black pill moment for me, not the black pill. The black pill for me is: do I allow myself to get sucked up and waste that much energy on elections that might not even matter? CD2 matters. In my brain, I think we're going to lose the governor race and we're going to lose the Senate with Susan Collins. And I don't. And my worry is that I spent too much time and energy focusing on that, and just imagine wasting a whole year trying to push, and then you lose everything. You're like, well, that was a waste. And it's tough, right? Because for me, it's like, I guess the demoralization's rough with it, I think. Well,
sure. I mean, here's the reality. Like, if we don't, like, so we have to think about things both locally and nationally, right? And I think, like, if we end up losing our Senate seat here, right? I like that's really bad long term for Maine. It's also really bad long term for America, because if Trump can't gain in the Senate, he's not going to be able to accomplish anything. And if he can't accomplish anything, we're in a lot of trouble. It's going to be hard to win if we're unable to accomplish, right? It's going to be hard for whoever the next presidential candidate is to win if we are unable to make it work. If we're unable to, like, gain and then actually get some meaningful legislation passed. One of the critiques against Trump is that he's, like, ruling by executive order. And, like, yeah, I think that's kind of true. But it's also, like, forced to
What's
be
up,
true.
Nick?
Can you hear us this time, Nick?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I can hear you.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a delay,
cool.
but that's fine. we're talking about Mills and who's going to win and all that kind of stuff. Red pill, black pill, not red pill, black pill, white pill or black pill. Which one are you? Where do you find hope?
So, where I think this election will be a lot different than what just happened is this election is also the midterm. So, it's also going to be a national election. So, a lot more people are going to turn out for this election. I think a year of what they just voted here in Maine is kind of going to be like what the 4 years that we dealt with Biden. And people are going to get so pissed off within the next year because these Dems are going to feel so emboldened to just push their agenda because of how they did in this election that it's going to make people just, here in Maine, just like it made people realize throughout the country what happened during 2020. So I think I think positively, I do think we will win the governor race. I think we will win. I do think, especially with Golden dropping out, I think Paul LePage has a really good chance now with that. As far as the whole Janet Mills thing, I think, honestly, you can call me conspiracy theorist. It's what I am. But I feel like Janet Mills was put to run. I know you're a Susan supporter, but I think that was put there to make us vote for Susan. Because you got to think, Susan gets the Dem vote too a little bit.
Yeah. And
where I know Susan has done a lot for a lot of people as far as there's a lot of veterans she's done, a lot for and stuff like that. I will not forget what Susan said about people that were in DC on January 6th. I will not forget how Susan Collins has voted since 2020. Susan Collins promised us, well, not us because I wasn't a Mainer at the time, but she did promise Mainers when she ran. How many terms did she promise that she'd run?
2 terms.
2, yep.
2. And she is now one of the longest, now that Nancy Pelosi dropped out, one of the longest sitting politicians, there. Granted, when I kind of talked with LePage, when I bumped into LePage at the thing that we had on election night, he was telling me, hey, listen, we all don't agree with her, but at the same time, she's one of the top 5 strongest Republicans in Congress right now in DC. But at what point are we going to finally say, enough is enough? It's not about the money that she brings into Maine. People forget that she was caught up in the FTX scandal. People forget that a lifelong politician, how much does she make yearly salary and how much is she worth?
Would you vote for Graham Plattner over her if you had to be forced to vote?
I'm not voting.
But if you were forced to vote,
I'm telling you, I will not vote in that election.
You're not alone. A lot of people have said that. I've heard that from a lot of people.
And I think that's the biggest mistake that the GOP is doing right now is not even who cares if you put someone up against Susan in the primary? If they lose to Susan in the primary, then they lose. We still have Susan. Point proven. Okay, we vote for Susan. But the fact that you won't even primary her.
Well, there are people. There's at least one person who's running that I've had come on the podcast. He had an open house in Auburn and had a couple people show up. Carmen Calabrese is running. And there's another person that I heard recently that's
Bill?
Also. I haven't connected with him, but there is another name. I don't have it off the top of my head. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are people who are running, and the party's not trying to stop people from running.
No, but the GOP won't help anybody that is running against her.
So here's the thing: is the GOP's position in general, and you can agree with this or disagree with it, is that they won't help any candidate in a primary in a way that they won't help all the candidates in the primary. And so ultimately, this is just we can talk about Susan and the kind of unique nature of what's going on in that situation, and I'm not going to debate with you in the sense that I think that there is an element where. And I've talked to a couple of people about this. I've said, look, we have this policy where we don't endorse prior to the primary, but when it comes to Susan Collins, it seems like we do, right? And I think it's I don't like, when it comes to like all the gubernatorial race piece, like from everything that I can see, and I'm not saying that I see everything, they're not supporting one candidate over another. They're giving all the candidates a platform. But yeah, when it comes to that race, I would say that there's this expectation and assumption, and you can like it or dislike it, but I think a lot of it has to do with not just the money that Susan Collins through her career has brought into Maine, but the money that she brings to this upcoming election that is believed going to help all the way down the ticket. This is, at least, these are the things. I've never run. I was not in politics back in 2020 when she ran last time, so I don't have that, but I hear that there's money that goes to help, other things outside of her race as a result of her running. And I think that there's an element there, but there's also like, and this is like, conspiratorial or not, whatever. Like, I think you called me a Susan supporter, and I don't think that's an accurate statement. I'm going to vote for her. If that's what you call a supporter, go for it. It's fine. But like, I think the reality is, if we have, I don't believe I don't believe that we have a strong enough conservative majority. We're in the minority, I believe, even if you narrow down the independents. I mean, there's more Democrats registered than there are Republicans, and the unenrolleds are the smallest of the pools of people, and I think they tend to lean more blue as well. And so I think we're a more blue state than we are a red state. I'm concerned that it's really challenging for an actual conservative to get elected to a statewide position. And like, I agree with you that Susan, came out and said that she was only going to run for 2 terms, and she's lived outside of that, and does not line up with me 100% on the issues, but I'd rather have her than Janet Mills or Graham Plattner. That's kind of where I stand.
What's the difference? Have you seen her voting record since 2020? What's the difference?
I have. Yep. I mean, I've not looked at every single vote. Yeah. She's
sided with the Dems 40% since 2020.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're not a Republican, you're an independent.
So here's the question.
Just because someone.
Yeah. I've long said that, I don't know if I've said it so much on here, but like, that I've considered Susan Collins to be a moderate Democrat, right? But right now, I would take a moderate Democrat over the far left. I would rather have a strong right person. I just don't know that they can win a statewide election, and I think it's difficult to gamble with something like this, where you have a high probability of somebody that can win versus
you think she has a high probability of winning? I don't.
Yes,
I think
I know. You made that abundantly clear, Richard. Like, you think
I think she's
lost
cooked
already.
I think she's cooked.
I know. I don't agree.
Why I think the GOP is dropping the ball. Have you talked to any of the voters here in Maine? The only people that are still so gung-ho on Susan Collins are people that work in that state house. The average everyday Mainer will tell you they're not voting for Susan Collins. Like,
we'll see.
We are done with rhinos.
We'll see.
I'm just saying. I think at this point we're handing that seat over, and even if she won, just because she has an R in front of her name doesn't mean that's what we want. So why not at least challenge it and see if we can put like someone like Rick Savage?
That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, think of the headline if he beat Susan, him against Janet Mills, the person that shut him down, the person that made him sell his business.
What do you think? You've talked to him. What do you think? Would he run?
So, I mean, he hasn't told me no. Let's just put it that way. He hasn't told me no. He hasn't said that he will, but he hasn't said that he won't.
That would be a lot of fun.
Clear that he hasn't said that he won't, but he also hasn't said that he will.
It would be pretty fun if the Republicans want to win anything, they need to make this exciting and fun, and fighters. They need fighters out in the front line.
Well, and that's the thing is people are done with milk toast Republicans.
Yeah.
That was the thing. 5 years that people don't want that no more. We're at a stage and age in the game where you're either fighting or you're not. Why do you think Laura Libby kind of just dropped off the thing the way she did? I mean, let's be real.
Yeah, they are. We are in a different stage, different era. People will only vote for fighters. People that are going to fight for their side. They're not going to take.
And that's why I'm supporting David Jones for governor, because I think for once David Jones will be what we're looking for here in Maine as far as our Kerry Lake, as far as our Mark Robinson, someone that's going to get up there, say it how it is. And yeah, he might not have the power to change something, but he's going to get up there and speak about it to put the people on notice that will. Unlike, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm sure your viewers ain't going to agree with this statement, but Bobby Charles is a lifetime lobbyist. He lived in D.C. most of his life. He is a D.C. lawyer. When was he registered to vote here in Maine? Why don't people go look that up? Now all of a sudden this man's trying to act like he's a hardworking Mainer, slinging the axe, chopping all this wood. Anyone knows that I'm not even from Maine, but if I'm chopping a crap of wood, I'm not doing it with an axe.
When was he registered to vote in Maine?
November 2022 is my understanding, right? This is there was a report that I heard.
And what about prior to that?
So prior to that, I think he spent the majority of his life working in DC. Like, so he was he was a lobbyist, not a lobbyist. He was a staffer under Reagan, and then he worked for the first Bush administration. Spent a decent amount of time working as not as a lobbyist for some of the time. He was a lobbyist, I believe, but there was a lot of time he was working with the House Oversight Committee in between the Bush administrations, and then he also worked in the Bush administration, the second Bush administration under Colin Powell, and I think he served somewhere along the lines there too as a military intelligence officer. And so, like, yeah, I mean, he's spent the majority of his adult life outside of the state of Maine. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I would. Those are accurate statements. Yeah.
People get mad when David Jones attacks him for that or points it out, and it's like, wait a minute, oh, that's not. I can't vote for someone that's like. But at the same time, they won't get mad when Trump's saying that Ted Cruz's wife has a horse face. You know what I'm saying? Like, people forget we're in an election, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the candidates definitely have to define themselves and point out things in one another, and I have no problem with that. What I think is interesting is there have been a number of people who have used this, like Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not say something negative about a fellow Republican, which, by the way, I believe there are only 10 commandments. So, like, if I think of somebody who's claiming to be a Republican or is a Republican is doing something I disagree with, I don't think that we should not speak truth about that. And so, like, but I think, like, yeah, these are two guys who have at least been willing to talk about the other candidates, and in some way, I'm not saying I agree with everything that they've said about everybody that they've talked about, but I think they're people who are, like, ready to share what they think is wrong with some of their fellow candidates, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, they've got to differentiate and show why they think they're the best person to represent Maine in the governor's seat.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So I again, going back to the Collins thing, I think my whole program here is tactical. Like, if Richard is right, and I think Corn Pop, you're on the same page there, and that we ultimately need somebody who is more of a fighter, as you're saying, then and that people won't vote for somebody who's not more of a fighter, then I don't know that Collins. I think if that's the metric that we're using, that I think Collins doesn't have. She's gonna be in trouble, right? And that but the biggest concern that I have is, like, I look at this, and this is kind of where I set. I'm open to considering other possibilities, though. Is that, like, I think that to me it's guaranteed that if we primary her, then we are 100% giving over the seat to a Democrat who is going to be. I mean, you can say that. You ask the question, what's the difference? And I'd say there's a incredible divide between what a Janet Mills would do in DC. Janet Mills is 100% a shill, a Democrat. Like, she'll do whatever the Democrat Party wants her to do. And so, like, her or Graham Plattner, who's a socialist, right? There's a huge chasm in between what Susan Collins would do and what they would do. And to me, the risk of trying to primary somebody like Susan Collins in the current situation unless you had somebody who'd been being groomed, and was ready to take on that fight, that had national acclaim, could raise national money. And I would say we were a bit more of a conservative state. But anyway, that's just where I sit. But nope, we lost and got him back. But
I mean, who knows? Like, maybe she will win it. It just feels like a lot of stuff's changed. I was just looking at the numbers she actually got 400,000 votes, which was actually pretty decent in a state that has 1.4 million. But
that was also during 2020 when Trump endorsed. Do you think she's going to get an endorsement by Trump this time?
No, I think he actually gave it the opposite.
He's not going to endorse her, dude.
What did she get in 2016 for votes? Did it go up or down? Or
she would have ran in what? Because it's every 6 years, I think.
Oh, is it? Yeah, so
2014, right?
Yeah.
I do think that Trump, maybe he hasn't. I don't know. We lost Corn Pop again. He might not endorse her, but he has said that we need her. So I think,
and who knows? Maybe really
Charlie Kirk made the comment that it would be silly to try to primary her. Like that. Anyway, there's a lot of. But the question is, like, is that like, and I understand Corn Pop's points about like she voted against us 40% of the time, but when I look at the issues and when it matters, when her voice actually makes a difference, she tends to be on our side.
Really? What about when Trump was trying to get his confirmation through?
She voted with. She voted against Hegseth, but she voted for Bobby Kennedy. She's a big part of the reason that Bobby Kennedy's in there. Actually,
didn't she vote against Cash? Didn't she vote against Galbert?
I don't believe so. I think she was.
I'm almost positive she voted at least against.
I'm not in love with Cash, so that doesn't offend me. But I don't know. I can double check. Yeah.
My thing is that's what we voted for. We voted. Trump had a mandate, and if you want to be, you know what I'm saying, on our side, you shouldn't be opposing it.
Well, I actually think that we have a representative form of government where we elect Susan Collins to, at her discretion, decide what she's going to vote on in those situations. We actually don't have a kingdom. Trump was not voted king. He's the president. And so there are these separation of powers on purpose, right? If we were just going to have a king every 4 years, that's what we would do. We wouldn't have Congress and the president would do whatever the heck they want. The reason that we have House and Senate is because they have their role. And part of that role is holding the president in check if they don't think that what he's doing is in the best interest of the country. Now, if you want to disagree on the merits of whether or not she was right about disagreeing on that, that's a whole nother story. But I actually don't think you're right. She did vote against Kash Patel, by the way, Hegseth and Patel. But she voted with all the others, including she voted for Tulsi.
After she had I think she was no on Tulsi, and then she had a meeting with Tulsi, and at the end they caved in. But no, I completely agree. Separation of that's not the point. What I'm saying is she got an endorsement by Trump in 2020 to get elected. If it wasn't for that endorsement, she wouldn't have got elected in 2020.
I honestly think in the state of Maine that a Trump endorsement is actually a negative. I mean, Trump lost Maine by 6.5%. She won Maine by 8.6%.
Didn't Trump win? Trump won one of the votes in 2020 and in 2024.
Right,
because Maine split so
consistently. Yeah, he's consistently won CD2, but he loses CD1, and again, he lost the state of Maine under Clinton. It was worse. It was worse. Well, it was worse under Biden, but he lost Maine by 2.5% in 2016. I don't know what it was in 2020, but by 6.5% in 2024. I do think Portland is obviously a huge part of that. Southern Maine is where like the problem is, but that's where I think here in Southern Maine, which is where a lot of the votes come from, I think a Trump endorsement actually would have hurt Collins in 2026 more than 2020, I should say, more than it would have helped.
So do you think an endorsement in 2020 in this term will help her or hurt her?
I think it would. I think there's a good chance it would hurt her in 2026. Again, I'm just looking at the demographics of the state of Maine, right? We have a lot more. We're more than 50,000, I think, Democrats, registered Democrats, and there are registered Republicans.
Registered Democrats?
Those are registered Democrats.
Is that legal people? I mean, what does it take to register to vote here in Maine?
That's a great question. Unfortunately,
how many of those registered Democrats are illegals that are in Portland?
That's a great question. Yeah. I'd love to be able to audit the books and figure out.
Here's an interesting fact with Susan Collins. So from 2008, I didn't go back any further, but from 2008 to 2000 to the current year, she's down almost 30 something thousand votes. She actually used to get more votes. The population of Maine was actually lower. She's actually consistently, so from 2008, she's actually lost 30,000 voters, right? And that's 20 years. Yeah. And the population's gone up. So that number, that ratio continues to get, but who knows?
You also look at if you like tracked that over against voter registrations and how those have shifted more to the left. I think it's going to line up directly, like 1-to-1.
But if that's, she don't stand a chance anyways. If your argument is that this state is more blue than it is red, then she doesn't stand. Then a Republican don't stand a chance in the first place.
Well, that. My point is a traditional Republican doesn't, because she is more moderate, and because like conservatives, are levying against
Democrat. Do you think any Democrat is going to vote for a Republican in today's climate?
No.
I think you have to look at older Democrats. Like we're an older state. Right? The vast majority of people here who are deciding elections are older people, and those older people look at the likes of Angus King and Susan Collins as Maine's grandparents, the people that they've seen represent Maine for a long period of time. I think older Democrats, the more moderate side of the Democrat Party absolutely would vote for Susan Collins because they appreciate what she's doing. She's a reminder to them of the more civil age of American politics, and even the way in which she handles herself is different. Yes, I think we've entered an age of fighting, and I think younger people on both sides of the aisle do not like Susan Collins, but I think the older Republicans for sure and older Democrats are and definitely the older independents, especially because they want to be independent because they're not tied to a party, right? Like Susan Collins is very independent in the way in which she votes. So I do think that she has a lot of appeal with with our independent population and even moderate Democrats.
Did Nick bounce out?
His connection seems to have lost him. I imagine he'll pop back in just a moment. I imagine you got to get going though.
It's too late. It's an hour and a half drive, so I'm not going to make it.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, what am I going to do there? I just interview people, film it and stuff.
Okay, cool.
It's not a huge loss. That would have been a 3-hour round trip on a Monday night. I was already kind of going back and forth.
So let me ask you this. All right. So do you think there's more older Democrats that are going to vote for Susan? There is young Republicans that are not going to vote for Susan. Do you think that weighing and depending on that older Democrat vote, you're not losing more young conservatives that are done with someone like that?
I think young conservatives leave the state, and I think the percentage of the conservative movement that is young is low. And if they're having to choose between a Republican that is not a perfect Republican, they may, like you, choose not to vote in that. And I don't know how significant that will impact things. But I don't know about you, Nick, but I don't know many young Republicans. Like this is kind of the problem that we have in our party is I go to Republican meetings and I interact with a lot of people, and I try as much as possible to interview people from all across the state in Maine politics, and finding younger people who are Republican is a challenge. So like, I don't know which people you're talking about.
That's the problem is you go into Republican GOP meetings. Most of the younger
I don't just go there
that are doing things on their own. Like there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them that are going to school boards. There's a lot, and if you want to see what people think, go look at for the week that I was calling on Rick Savage, and look at the comments from everybody that said I will not vote for Susan, young and old Republicans. I mean, most Republicans here don't want Susan. I mean, yeah, they'll vote for her if that's the only thing, because she's got an R in front of her name, but they want another option. And I don't see what the problem is at least primarying her and seeing if if someone else.
I'm all about, like, again, I took a risk because I'm trying to make inroads within the party, and then I'm also trying to like help the grassroots because I
got to pee real quick. Hold on.
I think I'm all right. I think I'm more grassroots than I am GOP. I hope that that's the goal anyway. I think when it comes to this type of stuff, I took a risk from a trying to make inroads within the party kind of perspective by having, as soon as I found out that there was somebody who was trying to run against Susan Collins, I invited them on the podcast and had him on, and I even did his town hall that he put on in Auburn. I was there to interview him. I'm not opposed to having somebody, if they're going to run as run and try to primary her if that's what they want to do. I think that we shouldn't oppose that in the party. I'm just saying, like, I think tactically, I think about it and I wonder whether or not that puts us in a worse position if you are able to be successful. But I also think it's like almost like a fool's errand because of how much money she's going to have access to. Even if there were a concerning challenger, money unfortunately has a huge impact, in our elections. So that's the other side of it.
Yeah, but you forget about that trucker in New Jersey that won a seat just spending what, 200 and something bucks.
I remember it.
We got that now. You can get your name out there and all that pretty. You don't, a lot cheaper than what you had to do it back in the day. Yeah, money does play a factor in it, I think. But I think Rick Savage would be a perfect person. Rick Savage would be one of the only people that could run against Susan without the help of for one, he's got his own money. For two, he's got the name recognition here in Maine as a fighter, as someone that's not going to cave. And that's why I think he'd be the perfect person.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see what would happen. I appreciate Rick, and I love his stand that he made against Janet. Like I was on the verge. I wish I had at this point. But I seriously considered. I was busy with stuff, but I seriously considered driving up to be able to go there just to support him because of what he was doing. But it ended up happening. But I really appreciate the way that he pushed back against the nonsense that she was pushing. So I like Rick. I talked to him at the when they had the gubernatorial debates. I had a conversation with him, and actually I think you'd made your post saying that you wanted him to run for Senate. So I asked him about it. Anyway, I'd be surprised to see if he would run, but again, the way that the party works is if you want to run, you take out papers, you raise money, you collect the signatures, and if you're on the ballot, you're on the ballot. If he decided that he was
you talk about taking Maine back, think dream team that we could have: LePage, Savage, and David Jones. David Jones is governor. Send LePage and Savage to Washington. You want to talk about trying to take our state back? That's a dream team right there. That's a dream team conservatives that are going to stop boys from competing in girls' sports. They're going to stop all the stuff that's being taught in our schools. And while we're on that, I'd pay attention to today. It's going to be a big announcement being made.
So, interesting. Did you know that the majority of all the registered voters in Maine are independent?
The majority? I thought they were third.
So is that
what's the data? When's the data based on?
I've seen August 27th, 2025. 373,000 are independent. 369,000 are Democrat. 318 are Republican. And then roughly in the elections, you're getting about 500,000, I think. or 500,000 to 700,000 that actually end up voting. There's actually a lot of people that don't vote.
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
Well, I mean, look at this past election. More people signed the ballot to get question 1 on the ballot than what got out and voted for question 1. I mean,
yeah, I think we had 130,000 people vote for it, and 170,000 people signed for it. Now, some of it is people got twisted by the way in which it was worded and by the media, and some of the people who signed for it, I think, voted against it ultimately.
How many people voted yes? Do you know?
130,000, I believe.
That's it? That's not even that many out of how many voters?
No.
It has to be more
Yeah,
than that.
I think that's the number. Hold
no,
on.
it wasn't a lot, dude. It wasn't a lot.
Give me just a sec.
So literally no one turned up for either side.
So 100. Okay, it ended up being after that was earlier on. 175,000 people voted yes. 312,000 voted no.
Okay. And wait, how many voted? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So we
that's
have
almost 488,000 people voted.
So we have 1.1 million registered voters, and that's a lot.
That seems like a high number.
I mean,
we have like 1.4 million people.
Yeah, so 300,000 would be.
We had 1.4 million people until Janet Mills fucking brought in the illegals by the busload.
Oh, I think that's supposedly including them. But yeah.
You know what we should do? Us three, we should just go to like just go in the rural areas and just start interviewing people and just seeing what they think. That's the problem, is that we just need to go out there and just talk to people. Because like, okay, here's what's interesting. The mock elections, the students voted almost 60% for Trump, right? No one would have guessed that. That's insane. Like, are we just not tapping the potential because we're not being bold enough?
That's like the problem.
Well, I think with that, again, I'm going to go back to with that question. It has a lot more to do with the way the question was worded and the fact that people go and vote and don't think and don't do any research and just vote. I think there's a big part of that, and the way it was twisted. So, but because the students voted against that, like 80-20.
Yeah, but I think that's a little bit different because the way that they work, because they could manipulate that in the schools
much more effective.
Yeah, you can't really manipulate like you vote for Trump or Kamala, right? It's either or.
Right. The way that they work is we don't do enough to get our voters out. Like, why don't we have a shuttle on election day to go pick people up? Why aren't we going to the nursing homes and getting their votes just like the Dems are doing right now? Why aren't we going and picking up the homeless people and bringing them to the polls?
I actually do. I talked to someone that worked at a nursing home, and she said that they actually brought the absentee ballots to the nursing home and helped them fill it out. Is Tim coming on?
No.
Oh. Well, Tim was asking if he could come on.
Oh yeah, no. Sorry, Tim. John Salamone said, "A great show, guys." I think he's overhyping us.
I mean, ultimately, most people don't care about our opinions on it. They just want to see action. That's what they like to see.
Well, the problem is that that's all the GOP has done is talk. We talk, and we don't do nothing. That's the problem. And that's why we continuously, like, how many freaking times are we going to lose an election before we start pointing the fingers at the people that are responsible for us losing these elections?
Who's that?
I think it's the GOP. Why ain't the GOP doing enough to get people elected?
Who's the GOP?
The people running the GOP. Why isn't our candidates getting as much, publicity as the Dems are doing? Why are we not hanging door hangers on doors like the Dems are doing, calling the Dems out? Why aren't we trying to get the voters out like the Dems are doing? I mean, hell, when LePage
part of it, like
running, it was his cousin or something that was on the ballot. GOP didn't even know.
Yeah, so there's a couple of interesting things that I would say is like I'm trying to get you to drive down like who it is in the GOP who's ultimately responsible. That's where like who
I think it's all of them. I think it's the entire GOP. It needs to be rehauled. I mean, I'm not going to point names at who's running it, but everyone knows who is. And honestly, look at them. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's all older people. We need young blood. We need young people that understand what is going on in today's climate.
So Nick's actually right about this. And what I've noticed is that the school boards and city councils seats, they're not being flipped by anyone older. Anyone that they put up older that doesn't really know the cultural issues, they're losing. It's all the younger people. They're flipping seats left and right. And all the ones that we've won, it's all younger people. It is actually shocking to see, because when I started posting the pictures of the people that won on our side, I was like, these are all young people. And a lot of the ones that lost were the older ones that they don't even understand the dynamic right now. They don't. They're so out of touch with what's going on. I think Nick is right about that.
No, I don't disagree. Like, but one of the other factors, and I think there's something that can be done, and I think that what I'm going to suggest is at this point the hope is not going to be found in the Maine GOP, and we have to figure out how to do it without the Maine GOP leading the charge in this area. There's two things to say. It's like, one, the Democrats do a lot because they have a lot. And what I mean by that is that Democrats spend a lot of money and they pay people to go door to door, and they have money because George Soros and people on the left are a lot more willing to give a lot of money. And so the left has a lot of money. We don't have that luxury, especially here in Maine, being that we're in the minority. We have a much harder time getting people to give us money anyway. I know that because I'm trying to raise money as the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans, and it's really challenging to get people, even if you're like, here's the plan, this is what we're going to do with it. We're going to hire people. We're going to get people out to vote, right? This is actually the plan, right? We have to have a get out the vote plan, and that is the plan. Even with that plan, having a hard time people giving money because of the bad taste in their mouth that people have for what the Maine GOP in general it has done historically with people's money, right? And so that's a challenge. We have to figure out how to overcome that for sure. And I do think that like changes at the Maine GOP could help it. But I think to your point overall is we have to have a ground game for getting out the vote. And whether it's going to come directly from the Maine GOP or we the people are going to try to rise up and figure out how to do it without their help, we've got to figure it out if we want to have a chance in 2026.
Where I would counteract what you were saying as far as door knockers and stuff like that. You know how many times up until this last year I have offered my time free, and the GOP has told me several times, plenty of people, that me door knocking for, LePage or certain candidates would hurt their campaign. The problem is we have a lot. We don't utilize everything that we have because we're so worried about being attacked, or the left is going to say this about how we're doing things instead of just relaying our message. That's the one thing the left they don't care about what we're going to say about it. They just
they don't.
And they don't. And the thing is they don't spend time attacking people in their group. That's the thing with us is we spend more time attacking each other and more energy fighting with each other than we do fighting the left.
Right.
I mean, up until this year, no one from the GOP would ever be associated with me. David Jones is the first person running for office that has no problem saying that he supports me or has no problem with me sitting at his table when he's doing events or something like that. Anyone before that, they wouldn't do that because they were worried that I might hurt their campaign or something like that. That's the one thing we need to realize is we have different talents. We all fight a different way. And we're all doing it for the same reason. And that's one thing the left does a lot better than us.
I would agree. As I was mentioning a while back, as Richard was saying, is like we're far too busy fighting amongst ourselves and not focused enough on like unifying against the other side. That's what we need to remember who the real enemy is, right? It's and to put the spiritual lens on it, we battle not against flesh and blood but against rulers and principalities, spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. There are human beings that are opposing us, that are part of that movement, but ultimately, like it's the ideology and the agenda that is on the left that is an anti-human, anti-God, evil. Death cult. That's who we're fighting against, not one another. And yeah, I think we need to unify.
You know what would actually be a really fun live show? If we did a show once a week and we just called random phone numbers and spoke to random Mainers, and we just dialed random numbers throughout the state and find out, because we can guess all day long what people feel.
You can do that. I feel uncomfortable like calling people and having
I would
not
do it.
know that they're immediately going to be live on.
Just
like
let them know.
Well,
you don't even have to ask their name. You could just be like, hey, we're actually just calling to find out people's opinions. Where do you stand? And if you hear all these independents going, yeah, I want someone that's more right-leaning, I want someone that's more aggressive, we could sit there and just hear what the main people are saying. And the thing is that, like, because we can guess all day long, but like, what if we did talk to a lot of people and they were like, we want to get the immigrants out. We want to lower the cost of housing by removing them out of the state of Maine. We want to lower taxes. We want to shut this down. What if the majority of Mainers actually agree with us, but we just don't have a way to talk to them? And it's not that hard. Just pick up a phone.
That's exactly.
I do it. It would actually be kind of fun, and it would be fun. It would be a fun show for people to listen to, because the person doesn't even have to. They don't even have to have their name on there, so it doesn't matter if they're live. It's not illegal, and us calling people wouldn't be illegal. And the GOP.
I'm not saying it's illegal. I'm saying like not everybody wants their name.
What if we did a debate once a week? We called out. We tried to get at least one liberal once a week to come on and debate us.
That would be fun. I'd love.
Yeah.
I would.
We put out a topic, a different topic once a week, and we call on one liberal to debate that one topic.
Nick, on your phone right now, can you actually call someone and we'd all hear it?
I mean, I could. I would do it off another phone, not if you know what I'm saying. Like I could be on.
Can you speak your phone?
Camera.
Okay,
I'm using my
phone as his camera.
Like,
What
I
he's
could switch to my laptop and then probably do that.
Well, we should do it. You should just do like 3 calls and just talk to them. Be like, hey, I'm just calling up right now. I want to find out what you're thinking, what you care about. And seriously, people, even if you hit it like a liberal, this would actually be, and the GOP would have a reason to pay people to do this, right? So like you're canvassing, you're finding out what people think. And we're too big of a state to drive around and interview people. But just picking up the phone, I did it for Graham Plattner's campaign when I was infiltrating them. I just joined in and just started calling their list. it was actually pretty easy. People just pick up, and on the phone, people are so much more open about how they feel because they don't realize that they're being recorded or anything. And some people are like, fuck you lefties. Like, it was actually pretty funny. Like, it was actually a blast. You should guess. We should just do a test run right now.
I would rather do it not recording and not on air. That's my official position on that. Yeah.
Why? It's a phone call.
To me, it's an invasion of privacy. Like if somebody called me and I was being recorded and somebody put it on the internet immediately, like I wouldn't answer the phone most likely.
No, you should at least when you call them say, hey, listen. By the way, I'm on a live podcast on
X,
people's opinions.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do that,
do it that way. Don't call them and say, "Hey, by the way, I'm so and so."
Dude, do 3 calls right now. Just dial random.
No, I'd rather not do it now. I'd rather have a script and all that. But I'm about to hop off. I'm about to hop off anyway, so I'm about to get into the shower. I just got off work. I will say, pay attention this week. I got big news about what's going on with the Augusta Police Department. We'll just say. There has been a lawyer hired, and I won't release who just yet. But that and Wednesday, pay attention to the school board. I got a huge announcement that day.
Are you
going? Love you guys. Godspeed. We will take back Maine. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take fight. It's gonna take the effort. But people need to get off their butts and stop being keyboard warriors and get in the damn fight.
All right. Yep. Thank you, Corn Pop.
Right. Godspeed.
Yep. See ya.
Should I feel like I just want to take the phone and just try one.
Do you have your phone with you? You want to?
Yeah.
You got a number?
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, we'll just do a random number. Hold on.
Get ready. It's going to be fun. We're going to see where this goes. So, Richard is a little crazier than I am. Just kidding. I don't really have anything to talk about while waiting for him. So if you're watching, I apologize. So this is actually the point where I should say, if you haven't checked out our website, go to muddywaters.us. It's one of the places where you can support the podcast and help me to be able to lose less money on this podcast, as I say. And you can also make sure you go to the socials. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And again, you can buy stuff. We actually sell coffee now on the muddywaters.us. So check it out.
See you. I guess we'll just use let's see, how do I do speakerphone? Oh, it says numbers not valid.
Nice try.
Mm-hmm.
We have to plan this out next time. Make sure we have some numbers ready.
Yeah. Can you hear this? See, the only problem is I don't have a 207 number.
So people are going to be less likely to respond.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, at the very least. Was it not working?
Well, so there's a lot of numbers just aren't numbers.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Are you just calling random numbers?
The number you have dialed, 20.
Okay, we'd have to somehow get phone numbers for it.
There's a way to do that for sure. But let's think of this idea and maybe play it out in real time. Sometime we'll plan something for next week. I think it would be a great idea to find a way as a movement in general to get a better sense of what's going on amongst the independents. I thought that the Democrats, last I'd heard, had taken the higher percentage of the voters, voter registration above independents. But according to the data that you presented, it seems like independents are higher than Democrats. So it'll be interesting to see what happens once we kind of take a look at that. But the point is, the independent vote actually has a substantial play in who wins elections in Maine, which is the big part of the reason that Susan Collins, despite being part of the minority party, has been in office in DC for the past 30 years.
Well, I mean, I guess we could just grab a phone book. And
we could.
Actually, but the good thing about the phone book is that you would end up connecting with older people, which would be more of our voting base.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But let's try that next week.
I mean, does anyone in the does any Republican ever do any phone banking like the Democrats do?
We have the capacity to do that, is the short version. And there is some of that happens around big elections. There will be phone banking for Susan Collins, for instance. They will be able to, they'll do that. That will be a thing. They did it for Trump. I know that. I don't know since Trump if there's been much of that going on. There was probably some in 2024, actually. Yeah, not a lot, but some.
Okay.
I think we could do some more of it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to do. Like, this is the thing, is we need people who are willing to volunteer. We need a system. We need organization. We need structure to bring people in, because we need people going to doors. We need people making phone calls. We need people doing stuff in social media. That's an improvement. We've got more of that. There's some more stuff trying to go on with the doors, with Maine Civic Action, what they're trying to do. But we need more grassroots stuff. We need volunteers, not just paid. And I think calling people is a great thing that we definitely should do.
Yeah, I don't even care about trying to convince people to vote a certain way when I call them. I just want to know. It's so hard to know what people actually think and feel.
There is some.
Maine is red.
There is some ability. There's an organization that I'm connected to that they believe they just need money, but they have the ability. They have a polling system and data of people who to poll. They just need I don't know, $30,000 or $40,000 to be able to do a poll. They're kind of ready to go, and they have a good, like I said, they have a good pool of who are the people in Maine that they can pull from, and they just need that organization, just more of a grassroots group of people. They have the tool ready to go. They just need the money because it costs a lot of money to send out. Because I think you have to send it out via either text or. I think it's text is how they would send out the poll. But either way, I would love to get a better sense of what's going on in the independent segment in particular. I wish I had the money to be able to fund that. I just don't.
I mean, I'm registered independent. Most of the people I know are registered independent. I just didn't think it would be that high of a number.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised that it was that high. I like I said, the only thing I was surprised by is that I knew that Republicans were the least. I thought Democrat was above independent. I thought that it had been independent, but I thought that had changed recently.
And you said it was 500,000 was the amount that voted for no on one, roughly 500?
500,000 total. About 488,000 people voted on question 1, 312,698 against, 175,455 for.
Wow. We really didn't get almost any of the Republicans. So, yeah, that's crazy. Because between all the independents that would have voted, geez, that's actually pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, some of the people that voted against us was probably Republicans is the short version. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, we didn't get Republicans out. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, ultimately, I mean, we're sort of just what are we going to, what do we have? We don't have no power. I mean, maybe you have a little bit, but ultimately there's only so much energy I can even put into that because it's their races, it's their stuff they're doing. So sometimes I'm like, oh geez, I just don't want to get too bogged down and get distracted. Ultimately, how many hours can I put into these races for what? You know what I mean? You can do what we can do. It's just that they're doing their thing. We can't control it. You know what I mean? It's good to chat about it once in a while, but it's ultimately it becomes such a distraction for stuff that people are actually doing on the ground. From my perspective, and I could be wrong, the whole mechanism of the GOP just seems like this massive. Not a wasted energy.
But part of the problem is that the way that it's structured is a bit archaic. Okay, right, and it's you make the comment about or Nick did about how we need younger people, we need to get newer people, and that
there's not many younger people. Though.
Well, there aren't many younger people. Number one, in general, in Maine politics. Number two, the ones that are raising families. Because if you're conservative, you think it's good to have a family, and so you're raising families, you're supporting your family. It's hard for you to also take the time and go run for office and get involved and go to these meetings that are
they're torture.
Right. So they're and that's part of the problem is some of the meetings are torturous and just frustrating. And then there's infighting within that. And so there's a lot of stuff that just makes it so that people aren't going to want to do it. And the only people that are people that are super committed, that believe in really believe in the party, or they've just been doing it for so long. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the ways in which they have something for themselves to do. Right. And so the challenge is how do you get into that machine and create change? Because it's so easy to be this is not worth it. What are we actually accomplishing here? Right. And so that's the challenge of the party. And it's the party structure because the city committees, city committees are great, by the way. They support candidates at the local level. And so whether that's House, Senate, or school board, city council, mayor, whatever it is, they're great. They're fantastic. But once you get above there, which is where the real organization kind of should come from, it's all bogged down in procedure and this idea that we need to come to a consensus on everything. And it's just really challenging to get anything done where you have so much process. And so it's gotten to the point where the organization of the Maine GOP, and this is probably true in other states, doesn't support the organism of conservatism.
Yeah.
right? And Republican ideals. And so how do you fix that? I don't know. It's really challenging without blowing the whole thing up. And that's where I think that for most people, like, if you like being involved in meetings, which I don't know how many people do,
No one does.
but if you do, go and join the Maine GOP at a bigger level. But if you're wanting to see something get done, be a part of a grassroots movement, be involved in your local city committee or town committee. There's potential there. But beyond that, it's tough. I'm the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans. Please come get involved. I would love anybody's support, anybody's help. I think there are things that we can do, and I need more people to be able to make that happen. But I do think it's challenging, generally speaking, at that level.
Well, it's interesting how it's evolved because of the internet. So like Graham Plattner can just campaign nationally, right? And so he can go do the town halls, which are, great for him. And then they have the social media account that reaches out to the rest of the country for donations. And I don't think that he's sitting there going to meetings, and he's not sitting there trying to get approval on this or that.
Well, even our candidates would tell you that they're not.
Yeah, they're not going.
So Austin Terrio came to a Cumberland County meeting. He's, obviously he ran in CD2 last election cycle, but he came and he talked about how when he ran for House, not U.S. House, but when he ran for his House seat in Augusta that he ended up winning, he never went to any committee meetings. Right? Like that was not his process. The process was reaching out to prominent people that he knew within the community that had influence, getting their endorsement, publicizing that, right? That's kind of the approach that candidates use. There is there's stuff that the committees do in the way of like levying resources, be it funding, financial, hiring staff, which we did this last election cycle to be able to coordinate and help with the door-to-door efforts and a number of other things. So there are things that the organization can do. A lot of the things that the organization can do, though, could be more effectively done from a grassroots level with PACs potentially. And this is where, for a lot of years, I know there's a lot of criticism around the dinner table, and some of it's deserved, some of it's overblown. But the reality is that PAC in particular trained me more for my run for office than anything that the Maine GOP did. And they did a lot of that stuff. They ended up, unfortunately, I think a big part of the thing is they burnt people out, and they asked too much of their volunteers and that kind of thing. And there are some other personality related things that I think that harmed them there. But that's part of why people gravitate to something like that, because it was action oriented. Here are the steps. Here's what you can do. Here's how you can actually take action and make a difference, versus you can go to this meeting. You can try to convince these people. They're going to make decisions based on how you, I don't know. It's just much more challenging to get anything done. But you do have the infrastructure. You have a ton of people that are connected in some way or another to either the county committee or the Maine GOP. I mean, our newsletter list is like over 2,000 for the Cumberland County Republicans on our email list. So we have a lot of access. You have access, within the party. You have access to be able to pull for getting out the vote. You have ways to get access to lists and stuff like that, so that we can. So there's a lot of those types of benefits that come from the party, which are helpful if they can be mobilized effectively for grassroots organizing. But there are also, the other challenges and the aspects of the way that the organization is structured that make it more difficult to get anything done.
It would, is just thinking about the phone call thing, like going live and calling random Mainers. I think that would be so damn interesting.
I think we should do it, but I think we should come with a plan, and see if we can find a way to get a list and call and ask about that. The difficult things about lists, like obviously I have access to lists, but I have access to lists for one purpose: getting out the vote. I cannot access a list and be like, oh, so that we could do something like this. That would be violating
and I don't care about it.
So we can't do that. But you can call random people. Or we can grab the phone book and just call people in the phone book and that kind of thing. I think that's a way to go about it, but it's harder to know what their voter registration is, because we really want to connect with independents, right?
Not necessarily. I think for entertainment
or random
Mainers. Like you want a Democrat or lefty to be, you want to hear all our point of views and what they're thinking, and we're kind of closed off, so it's hard. Like I guess just finding different towns and just going through and just calling and talking to people and finding out what the actual the real consensus of what people are feeling and what they'd vote for. Because the hard part is that everyone has these opinions, but we've never really tested it. Like, where do Mainers actually stand on this stuff?
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
Yeah, and you could tie it in and have an interesting show. Like, how awesome would it be to get some lefty on there that's arguing? Then the next one you get a Trump supporter or a right winger. Like, you just don't even know what the heck you would get. It actually would be a would be a ton of fun to do. We'll have to look into it. We should do it as like a weekly thing and just have, I guess we can't call it Maine calling, because isn't there already a thing called Maine calling? I don't know. Yeah, that would actually be kind of fun to do.
Yeah, I'm game for that.
Okay.
Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you all for watching, and it's been fun. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. We got Paul Flynn, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He's a minister turned politician. He's a house rep out of like somewhere up near Winslow, between Winslow and Augusta, whatever that town is. Anyway, he'll be here talking about what he does and why he's, as a minister, involved in politics.